Good evening, everyone, or good morning, depending on what time you're listening to this. This is a collaboration. We are joined today by the wonderful chat from 8-Bit Popcorn. Got it right. Good evening, Ryan and Joe.
Good evening.
Lovely to be chatting to you.
I say collaboration, but I should really...
You're going to have to clarify.
Watch that word, because in Jersey, that can be a very dirty word.
Ooh.
Stems from the old the occupation of the Channel Islands.
Are you at liberty to go into detail?
By the Nazis. Some people were accused of being collaborators with the Nazis.
Okay.
I see. Okay. So World War II kind of collaborators.
We had nothing to do with it.
No, I don't think anyone ever got prosecuted. So you guys are a relatively new podcast.
Biggies.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
How do we put it? Joe, could you put it much more eloquently than I could? I'm sure.
Let's see. I don't know. We are three media experts from Northern Ireland or the north of Ireland, whatever way you want to say it. Ryan here is a professional in the industry, so he does editing, camera work. Zara, she is a script supervisor, so she gets work like that, and she's also a friend of Christopher Nolan.
Best friends.
Apparently,
No. They were best friends. They've broken up. If you listen to the podcast,
they were best friends. No,
I did hear
not so
a
much.
comment about that, and I was wondering if it was just because you
She loves
criticised
Chris.
one of his films
She
or
loves
something.
Chris, but something's happened and they've split.
She talked to him once, and she won't
shut up about
let
it
it
yet,
drop.
so.
Maybe it's Tenet. Maybe it's that shitty film Tenet.
Well, I think it was shit. Do you know, I didn't even make it the whole way through the movie. That's how bad my review was.
I've seen it twice, and I still
there
don't
you
really
go.
understand what's going on or why the sound edit choices were made. But anyway,
I did. Zara, if you're listening, Tenet was shit.
And then, just to introduce myself, I was/am an actor or voice actor. And, if you listen to the podcast, I've done a master's degree, which I
He
will
holds
not
over
shut up
me
about.
every
So,
episode.
I need to talk about my master's degree constantly because, it was a media degree. So here, I'm using
But can you
it.
talk about your publishings? Joe's a writer as well, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
well,
that thing I do.
Oh yes, that book I wrote. Well, I'm not currently published, but in the process of doing all the stuff for it. There will be more on that whenever it is published. And it certainly will be promoted on 8-Bit Popcorn.
that's very cool.
To no end.
I was listening to your death. I think it was the death of the author episode where you mentioned your degrees, your qualifications. Although it sounds like it could have
You
been
could
any
go
episode.
to any episode and it will happen.
And I did hear a lot of talk about masters and PhDs and stuff like that. And I'm feeling very intimidated because Riggs, who's not here tonight, but Riggs, he's got the Slackers degree, a 2-2, and I just fucking dropped out. So, I feel like you guys should be teaching
Well,
us
actually,
about
if
how to
you
do a
listen
podcast.
to one of the other episodes, you'll find that I don't have a master's. I have a degree in film, but not a master's. So that's what's held over me every week. So Joe's the odd one out here this week.
Yes, now I'm in the minority. Ooh, I don't like it.
I'm not even a graduate, so you both.
What
got
did you
one over
study?
me. When I was there, I was doing something shit like business. I think I dropped out within days, but I just stayed at college getting drunk a lot, and then I was gonna go back the following year to do something completely different, like earth sciences or something like that. And I just thought, no, let's not do that. I just got a job. Terrible decision. Absolutely appalling decision. Don't do it.
And now you're here, so
And now I'm here doing
life
this. Yeah.
decisions.
So, it all turned out all right in the end.
Yeah.
Whereabouts specifically in Northern Ireland?
Well, I'm from a little town called Antrim, which is about 20 miles just outside of Belfast. And then Joe and Zara, just to speak for them, are from Belfast. Isn't that right?
Not
Okay.
from Belfast.
You live
Let
in
me
Belfast.
tell
You're not
you
from
that, okay.
Belfast.
I live in Belfast, yeah. I'm originally from Lurgan, another small town, also known as the ghetto. It really is the butt of many jokes over here. So
I got some family sort of over your way. My mum, she's from Larne.
Yeah, my brother lives near Larne.
Okay, and then so there's millions of them, but my auntie still lives over there. She's in Banbridge, which is seems like a bit of a sleepy backwater to me.
yeah, it's not far from Lurgan actually. So yeah,
And
you're not
my
wrong.
cousin, who is one of the ones from Banbridge, he's been pretty successful in the movie biz. He's a VFX artist.
Oh, wow.
He did the dragons on
Oh,
Game of
brilliant.
Thrones, and he's currently
Who does he work for?
Disney. He's currently lead VFX on Marvel's The Eternals.
Wow.
Oh wow,
So
really?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
He's far up.
I'm going to try and bully him into coming on the show
You
one
should.
day. And
You should
Yeah.
try and bully him.
Telling
For,
us
well, I don't want to say
all
for you.
about it.
I'd take a job if he's offering a job. I don't do visual effects, but it sounds like fun. I was on Game of Thrones. I'm sure everybody in this country is on
Really?
Game of Thrones, but I was on Game of Thrones seasons 1, 2, 3, and then the final season 8. I went from being a peasant to a royal
tell anyone
guard,
about the
and then
last
I went to be an unsullied soldier in the final season. So I had a good
Nice.
character arc.
You got
Did
a
you
little
go-
cut off.
Did you go full method?
Full method. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You talking about the shaved hair? Yes.
Right, tonight we're going to talk about a film that I guess is sort of parenting related, because I'm obviously from the Bad Dads Film Review podcast. We review films that we missed while we were parenting, and also we do the kids' TV that we're forced to endure, which is sometimes brilliant but frequently terrible. So well, it was your nomination, I guess, but this is a film that kind of mashes those two concepts into one. It's Pixar's Inside Out.
Is this something you watched with your family or on your own?
No, I watched it on my own for some reason, and I fell asleep, and then I had to do it again the next day, which I think was without my daughter, but it was with the missus. No, I'm going to have a dig at my co-host because I do fucking everything on the show. I think
So
I was
we
exhausted.
heard,
and,
yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was like really late at night, like about 8:30, when and I just fell asleep. So I did see it all in the end, but it took a couple of goes at it. Most films do. I've fallen asleep in the cinema. I've fallen asleep at like a metal gig in Iceland. I fall asleep all the time. So I don't think I'm fully narcoleptic, but it's not far off.
Yeah, I mean, partially. I've only fallen
Yeah.
asleep in the cinema once, but it was in the VIP section, and it was those
Oh,
real
so
comfy
comfy.
chairs. So yeah, I just relaxed. It was the Book of Eli, actually. Really.
Oh, well, that's fair enough.
No, that is fair
Uh,
enough. Yeah, it was a pretty boring film. Never rewatched it.
The cinema, I remember, like, there used to be a thing called the cinema that you used to be able to go to and see.
Yes,
Film.
in that fabled place where people gathered and watched moving images together.
Where,
What a time.
in Jersey, we've got a Cineworld, which, it's like legit cinema. Our, let's say, sister island, Guernsey, they have nothing at all, like nothing. I think there might be a hotel that has like a big telly that they can go and watch, but they've literally got no cinema. But I don't know if Cineworld's going to survive all this nonsense. So we may be having to watch stuff just at home forever. I don't know.
Yeah,
We
talked
did
about
talk
that, Ryan.
about that,
haven't we?
yes. There was a lot of reshuffling and restructuring in cinemas to survive, essentially, and come up with additional cash flow. But I don't see it, regardless, as an institution that will ever close. I think even if Cineworld went financially bankrupt, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else came in and bought them out. It'd be a sad day if cinemas weren't available anymore. That is a big concern of mine, actually. I think releasing straight to streaming services is a big mistake, and too many companies are leaning hard into that now, and that scares the hell out of me because you're going to be paying more. You don't get the same experience sitting on your sofa watching a big blockbuster. You want that communal experience of sitting in the cinema, surround sound, big screen, fresh popcorn with people, with friends. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. Dan, on our show, he is not a fan of the cinema. He loves the movies, but he'd sooner just stay at home
How's
and
that?
watch them. So he is categorically wrong. Let's be 100% clear about this. His opinion is wrong. The cinema is a must. There's a guy over here he sort of goes by the name of Cine Steph, and he sort of travels around the island setting up, whether it be parties or at the end of the last lockdown 1. We couldn't obviously have the cinema because there's still limits on numbers, but he would host sort of film nights in hotels. So we saw Parasite in a Savoy Hotel, which is down the road from me, which was great. It was not the full cinematic experience, but at least it was like a quirky sort of 20 people in a room with like posh hot dogs and stuff like that. It was great film as well. Always helps when you got a good film to watch. But yeah, someone sent a message to saying the cinema reopens on X date, and I was thinking, well, there's no films like around.
I believe they'll just re-release, maybe things like, there's big releases like Quiet Place and James Bond and whatnot that still has to come out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they grabbed releases that, like Wonder Woman, movies that they sent straight into streaming services, or
even
movies
Jack
that are
Tenet.
independent. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought them back out.
Yeah.
Did you see Wonder Woman
We did.
84?
We did. We had a
reviewed
whole
it,
episode on it.
Shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
No.
Did you enjoy it? Should
Well,
let down.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Zara kind of enjoyed it, but Zara is very easy on the movies. Just put some moving images in front of her and she's happy.
There was things that I enjoyed,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
Gal
yeah,
Gadot,
yeah.
but
It just felt cheap.
Chris Pine getting
like Chris
dressed was great. But
Yeah, I was going to say.
The film, yeah, it was such a shame.
But
I think the
yeah,
first one's pretty overrated as well, personally. But anyway,
the first one has like one really good scene, which is the no man's land scene, and I
Yeah.
think everybody kind of focuses on that. And then the second one has no good scene.
You
Can't really
liked
think
the
of
one, Joe, where she was
one
there was that
scene in
big
it.
chase scene down the is it like the freeway and she's jumping from vehicle to vehicle.
It was okay. I wouldn't like say, "Ooh, I like that scene," but basically, I kind of like the interactions between Wonder Woman and what do you call him, Steve Trevor. I thought they were fun, but
I mean,
overall,
she
the
technically
film was
raped
just-
some guy.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
we kind of
that was-
touched on
that
as
was
well
weird.
in the
Yeah.
episode. The whole thing of consent, it was strange. If it had been the other way around, say, Wonder Woman was a man, so it was like Superman and Lois Lane was in another person's body, that would have been very, very weird. So Pixar,
Yes, there was no
family friendly.
issues like that
No,
in this
no.
movie.
No,
Do you know I haven't watched this movie in I say a long time. It was out in 2015. I haven't watched it in a few years, and I don't recall actually enjoying it the first time round. But then when Joe put the spin on it, saying that therapists are using this with children to explore their emotions, and I looked at it from that point of view, it's actually a very clever movie. Very clever.
Yeah. This is the story of a girl named Riley whose family uproot and move from Minnesota to San Francisco. So she's feeling, a bit of a fish out of water. She can't play hockey anymore. She's left to her friends. Their stuff doesn't arrive. It's gone to Texas for some reason. I think, blame the dad for that, doing some bad admin. And she's effectively having to live like a squatter in this house. And the way the film sort of works is we are presented with her emotions. They are sort of personified. We've got joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. And it's all about how they work in the background to create these sort of emotional responses and how they affect her in real
Yeah.
life, I guess.
Immediately, I really enjoyed the opening scene where Riley, the 11-year-old girl, is born, and then first emotion that pops up is joy, and she has this one little control panel. And I thought it was really interesting that as obviously develops, she gets just more emotions, just kind of like just join the fray, and then they're all taking turns at this kind of command console as opposed to working on it together. There's so much to enjoy. Like I love the. That's kind of jumping ahead a wee bit, but I love seeing the mother and the father's emotional states, like who kind of runs their minds. I thought that was really fun, really, really playful.
Yeah, we get, obviously the movie focuses on Riley, but we do get, jumping ahead right to the very, very, very end, you see a whole gamut of different people and how they're being controlled by their emotions. But this sort of has this idea, this sort of construct that there are sort of key memories that form Riley's personality in effect, and it manifests in these five, was it five?
Yeah.
I think it was five.
Yeah,
five islands that are, so family and fun and whatever they were. But they are basically total pricks to the sadness emotion.
They are. Well, would you say they're all
There's-
total pricks, or
there's-
was it just more joy?
Joy was the ringleader, like she was a complete prick and basically bullied her out of the equation
But
altogether.
that is what we do.
Yeah, I mean-
with our emotions. Like sadness, not even just joy.
True.
Like I thought joy had the toughest job because every other emotion in Riley's head is in direct, nearly conflict with joy. Anger doesn't go well with joy, and sadness maybe doesn't go well with joy, and disgust and fear doesn't go well with joy. So I kind of felt like, although everybody else can get along, joy was the one that was constantly battling every other emotion. So I felt like her job was actually the toughest. But yeah, she was a bit of a bitch to everybody, trying to contain sadness and to that little circular bubble that she would draw on the floor. Like, again, that's just something that we all do.
And as for like the casting of the emotions, Amy Poehler was a brilliant choice for Joy.
Is that how you say her name? Poehler? I
to
thought it was
voice her. I
Fuller.
mean, I think so. But no, she was good. Of course, if you remember Amy Poehler from Parks and Rec, she was Leslie Knope, who was an internal
brilliant.
optimist, so she is like perfect for playing Joy. But yeah, I found it interesting. Like you, Ran, I liked seeing whose emotion ruled whose head. So you saw the dad; he was ruled by anger, and the mum, she was ruled by
Sadness.
fear. Was it sadness? Yeah, hers was sort of predominantly sadness, but you see whenever their emotions are a bit more mature, they're not just the one thing. In other people's heads who are a bit more mature, it's not that they're purely angry or purely sad or anything like that. It's just sort of a mix, and they're all working in tandem, whereas Riley is hitting that puberty stage where her emotions are going absolutely crazy and they're all fighting one another. So it's kind of an emotional, or sorry, a film of coming of age, emotional maturity thing. So
They stand her up at school and ask her to basically talk in front of a class, and this is where everything sort of kicks off, and the sadness at this point grabs or mistakenly causes this memory to now become I can't remember the term they use for it now off the top of my head, but it's not long-term memory because they're the ones that she generates every night when she goes to sleep. It's the key memories, I don't know. But this now, the sadness one becomes one of her 5 sort of key memories and causes her to sort of fall into a kind of depression, I suppose. And the guy, the director of this, Pete Docter, this is what happened to him. This is his story of his upbringing, where his family left their home and they moved to Denmark so the father could study the music of Carl Nielsen.
Wow.
Which seems really specific. And his 2 sisters got on fine. They've just immediately integrated and were fine, but he was very isolated and withdrawn. And so that was the inspiration for the story. So that is how what sort of happens to Riley. She withdraws from her classmates. She doesn't really connect with anyone on a friendship level, and she's quite resentful of her dad for making them make this journey, I think.
yeah, it's interesting that you sort of said she disengaged or dissociates, from her emotions. There's that scene where she tries to run away. And this is actually what prompted me kind of looking into Inside Out, because I was watching a video about, it was like a therapist reacts to Inside Out, and they've got a YouTube channel, and they were talking about that scene specifically where her whole emotions shut down, and they're not responding, and they can't like take control of her, and she is just sort of trying to run away from everything. And they use that scene in particular to educate children and educate their families on engaging with your emotions and letting yourself sort of feel them, because those are the things that drive you. And if you sort of do disengage from them, then you can make, very odd decisions or very rash decisions where you're not fully aware of what you're feeling. And so you just kind of run from whatever it is. And so I find that quite interesting whenever I actually stumbled across it. Yeah.
My daughter's having a few, I wouldn't say like completely withdrawn, but just I think the effects of like being in lockdown for so long and not having seen anyone or really been able to have people around and play and do kid stuff, has really started to take its toll on her. So she doesn't really know how to cope with it. My daughter's 7 years old, she's not geared up for that sort of emotional stuff. So it's sort of interesting to see how something like this can open your eyes to what's going on in a child's mind and just give you a bit of an understanding, a bit of empathy about it. This shit is difficult.
Well, it's hugely relatable.
She's taken away from her friends and her family and everything, and we're totally taken out of our routine at the minute. And if your daughter's missing her friends and everything, then maybe, I don't know, this movie is quite relevant for
lockdown. I'd say it is. Yeah, definitely.
They were driving home this message early on about how you need sadness to kind of put joy into perspective. So be it even with something as simple as bottling up or sadness and putting it in a little bubble, or even kind of sprinkled throughout. So whenever the dad was having problems with his job or with the kind of the delivery of their home furniture and everything, the scene where the daughter Riley goes to bed and the mum is telling her to just keep smiling just for her dad, she's essentially communicating the idea of just be happy, just pretend to be happy, just kind of bottle up that sadness and forget about it, just put on a smile. And I just love those little moments where they're sprinkling out this whole idea of, it's just what we do, even subconsciously, is we always try to bottle up that sadness.
Joy has this realization that you need the sadness for people to rally around you, and that will create these different memories that you need. You can't just be a one-dimensional happy person all the time. She has this sort of eureka moment, which means that she has to go now find sadness, and that's where the sort of adventure part of the film takes place. There's loads of good, like what we've talked about, the message and all that sort of positive stuff's really good. I didn't think that this visually was some of Pixar's best work, personally.
A lot of people thought it was.
I would actually agree with you there.
I would agree, but a lot of people thought that it was...
I thought it was a lot of marbles.
Yeah. But a lot of people... It was one of the things
creative
that I kept seeing up on the internet was how gorgeous this movie looked, and I thought there's been better movies out there. Something like
No, I mean,
Cars, in my eyes, Something
All
simple
that
just
metal.
looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think because it's so fantastical, we don't really have anything to reference. Whereas the likes of like recently Toy Story 4, it looked class, but it's because we
That's-
know what those materials look like. Whereas you're inside somebody's head. What does joy look like? What does
That was the
sadness look
film
like?
I was going to reference, because Toy Story 4, I think that you could just pause any
Amazing
scene,
looking, yeah.
every frame is just absolutely spectacular. This, I get the bit, with the forgotten memories, that's dark and that's on purpose. I get that. But a lot of it was just round balls on a shelf. Some of it, I found it a bit stale to look at occasionally. I was going to go on a big tirade about how I think Pixar are really overrated, actually.
Go ahead.
Please do.
If you go,
Yeah.
let's be controversial. So 23 films currently.
Mhm.
Toy Story, obviously, that's a landmark film. Bugs Life, shite.
You didn't like Bugs Life? Oh
Bugs
my
Life is
god!
like one of my
no.
childhood movies. I loved Bugs
Ants,
Life.
Ants is the better one.
No, that's the Woody
no,
Allen.
that's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with Woody Allen.
Problematic.
Toy Story 2, great. Monsters Inc., I don't care for it. Finding Nemo,
No,
rubbish.
Monsters Inc.
First one's good.
No.
Nah,
Monsters University sucked.
Yeah, Monsters University is
I
whatever.
haven't seen Monsters University. Finding Nemo, I don't like it.
Damn.
The Incredibles I
Love
did
The
enjoy, but
Incredibles.
my friend Jim has a hatred for that film, which is beyond belief. He thinks it's some sort of weird propaganda movie.
For what?
It's hard to really understand it, but he really hates it. I quite enjoyed that. Cars, I think it's crap. Ratatouille is good. Wall-E is amazing. Up, me and Riggs disagree about Up all the time because I think it's really boring.
the
and
opening
has-
scene is the
opening
best
scene is
good,
exposition. I
but
loved it.
Yeah, but that's it.
Yeah,
Well, the
the
rest of
villain
the
is-
movie is a bit.
in my opinion, the villain is weak.
Okay, I love the
Yeah.
intro.
Yeah, but Riggs thinks he's the best villain. I think he's rubbish. Toy Story 3 is absolutely incredible. I would say that is their best. Cars 2, no. Brave, meh.
Yeah.
Not seen Monster University. Inside Out, I'll give you my verdict later. Good Dinosaur,
I've
I've
not
not
seen
seen it,
that,
but I
no.
heard it's rubbish.
No, not seen it.
Finding Dory,
Haven't
no.
seen it.
Cars 3, no. Coco, I've not seen it.
No.
Incredibles 2, yeah. Toy Story 4, I enjoyed Toy Story 4,
No,
but
no.
You could say
It was
it's unnecessary
very
after Toy
unnecessary.
Story
Very
3.
unnecessary. And they just shoehorn. They just kicked
Yeah.
Buzz to the sidelines. And no, I hated the new characters. They should have just
Yeah.
left it at 3.
I had no compunction to see Toy Story 4 because I just thought Toy Story 3 was a good leaving off point. I mean, it
was
basically.
bad.
You can
Perfect.
see just behind me. I do love Toy Story. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're actually just a mixels
yeah.
to me at the
I've
moment.
got a slinky dog somewhere.
Is he free to a good home?
And then what have we got left? Onward, I've not seen. We started watching it, but didn't finish it. Soul, we watched recently, and that's
I
actually
heard it was
that was really
bad.
good.
I haven't seen it yet.
A lot of different opinions.
No, well, I enjoyed it. It's got
heard it
Richard
was good.
Ayoade, and he's pretty good.
I
and
think he's
everything.
overrated.
No, it's good. Well, he's just
Yeah.
he's.
I
quite
loved him in
Richard Ayoade.
the IT Crowd.
If you like
That
him,
was
you
it.
like him.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna go through that list like that, I'm saying that at least 50% of Pixar films are no good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would agree that they are kind of overrated. They went through a period of being really hyped, and I think it was around the time of Up, wasn't it? Where people were like, they have actually crossed over into high art. And you're right, they opened up. It's the only good part of that movie, really. After that, it's just really super standard. But as an animation studio, they do push the boundaries. Like with Toy Story 4, as unnecessary as it was, they really did push the boundaries of what. I think they used physically based rendering. I'm not too sure whenever they were rendering that, but they certainly pioneered dual focus techniques for CG. You can get them in, you might know about this, Ryan, where you can focus on two different points
Like an infinite
at the same
focus.
time while everything else is out of focus.
Whoa, while everything else is out of focus. I haven't come across that
yeah,
now,
it's-
actually.
I don't know.
Right?
It's a particular type of lens, yeah. And they pioneered that in
Mm-hmm.
animation. And so, certainly in animation, they're not overrated, but in terms of storytelling, I do think that I agree with you in that a lot of the time it is kind of blown out
When
of
they're
proportion as
good,
to how
like-
good it is.
They are amazing, but I think
Yeah.
people just forget about the bad ones and just say, just that's a Disney film. Or so, they
Yeah,
just
they
kind of
write it
forgotten.
off.
A perfect point and case is Toy Story 3, where they hand over the reins. They hand over the reins to the kind of younger generation. They give away the toys, and it is so sad. Probably one of the only movies I would jerk a tear to.
What a way to put it.
Was that when the Sex Pest John Lasseter got the boot?
Then, Disney stepped in like, we need to get that nostalgia. We still got Toy Story rides at Disneyland, so we got to make another movie to get people there, so we can't leave this franchise out in the cold.
But yeah, so this one then, I don't know, do I want to... It's really good. I don't know why I missed it. I think this was a classic case of like the parenting thing, and I never got around to seeing it. But whilst I really enjoy the message and the sort of the themes are really relevant and important, it's not as visually impressive as some of the other stuff. So I was kind of left a little bit.
Does that always matter?
And also, no. But also, when I see Carl McLachlan, I want to see something weird and quirky from him, not just a boring dad. Like I'm a boring dad. I want to see Twin Peaks kind of stuff out of Carl McLachlan.
Some David Lynch stuff in the middle of Inside Out. Yeah,
I didn't even know this was Carl McLachlan until the credits rolled, and I was like, "Fuck."
I'd like to, when you look at the different emotions. Actually, I thought a lot of people were saying that this movie is a very sad movie. Okay, there's a lot of cries. One of the saddest moments for me, actually, was, I suppose, when you actually get an insight into the heads of the mother and the father, and you can see the emotions that's running their psyche, I suppose.
Yeah.
And you see that the father's is ran by anger and the mother's ran by sadness. To me, for some reason, I found that was sad for me to see that the mother's psyche was ran by sadness, because then I think there was something in there to be said that the mother's more melancholy, or maybe she's a bit kind of more on the depressed side. Maybe the father's got more.
The family, the family dynamic was that they were kind of chasing the old man's dream, weren't they? And she, I guess her hopes and dreams had been sort of cast aside, and she was just a passenger on his journey. So maybe she was, feeling the effects of that
while reminiscing over
we're reading
the
deep into
relationship
it
that
now.
could have been with the helicopter pilot.
Yeah. Well, it could be a case. We saw that Riley was born with her first feeling was joy. What if the mother's first feeling was sadness? Maybe she was separated from her mother at birth or something like that. And then the dad came out. He was like one of those crazy babies. I mean, if I could pick my sister's first emotion, hers would be anger. She was an angry person, and apparently a very angry baby. So I'd say that she was ruled by anger first and foremost.
Whose fault was that? Was that your fault?
I did not exist at that time.
So you're assuming she's always been angry?
So, yeah.
Well, this movie could make you sort of look back on your life and try and think about what those sort of milestone moments were that have created your sort of emotional state.
Yeah. Kind of made me think about that. Let me ask you: is this? I mean, you rewatched it, Ran, and then you watched it. So, did you cry at any point? Did you tear up at any point, or did you find any point touching at all?
You did.
No?
I didn't cry about it, but the sort of the being a parent, and seeing the struggles that a child goes through. We've had some big stuff to deal with in our family. I like some traumatic events, so you wonder, did those leave a big scar, especially on a child who isn't emotionally mature enough to know how to deal with that sort of stuff. So when you see that on a film, it's very, very relatable, and it, that's one of the things that makes it in a way less enjoyable, because it then puts that worry in your mind of like, shit, what's she thinking about, and how do we deal with that, and what have I got to do, so it's like an education, this movie, in some ways, because it does open your eyes to, you have to be more emotionally intelligent about what's going on around you.
I think
it's interesting that you took it from. Okay. Sorry, I'll let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish, okay? But I'm gonna have my Kanye moment. But no, it's interesting that you took that point of view. Because you're a parent, I'm not. So I look at everything completely selfishly. How does this affect me personally?
Oh no, I'm still pretty selfish.
So it's good to have your sort of perspective of that, because a lot of people did say that this movie really wasn't just for the children. It was a really good watch for the parents as well. Yeah. It's educational for both, so it is cool to hear you say that. But I'm gonna let you finish, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, as everybody I'm sure is, I'm just a huge fan of nostalgia, and I find that when Bing Bong, that's his name, isn't it? The elephant, when he fell down into that pit, and he finds that memory orb, that memory ball, and he can see himself playing with Riley as a child. That was probably one of the only moments that made me actually really feel anything, was just because then I wondered, how much was I forgetting in terms of memories and relationships, and what I got up to as a child. And I find it that's sad to me because once you've lost your childhood, it's gone. And there are moments that I can remember my naivety growing up, and I kind of wish I could remember more of those. I can still remember the first time I learned what a dildo was, and I know that's not quite childhood, but I remember being in school and my brother saying dildo, and I was like, "What's a dildo?" And he told me what a dildo was, and I thought I couldn't contemplate, I couldn't understand, because I thought to myself, why do women need dildos? I have a penis. What's wrong with? Why do they need a fake penis?
Not just women.
Yes, that is true. We're talking about inclusivity here, but I just couldn't fathom. Yeah. I just couldn't understand it. I did not grasp the idea of why women would use a fake one when we as men have real ones. It's just one of those. It's just something. It's just a big moment of naivety for me.
You clearly haven't lost that memory.
No, it's stuck with me. I'm not sure what else that says about me, but.
What's your most prominent memory? What's your key memory, Ryan?
It's that one, and as a Irishman, I was an altar boy. Like, I might have said this to you. Yes.
Oh.
And I think I must have been about 10 or 11. And for some reason, the smell of the incense, whatever it is that they're kind of wafting around the church, gives me the shits. And on Christmas Eve...
I thought it was going to be like, it's very nostalgic.
On Christmas Eve, I was up at the altar doing my duties. And I shot myself in front of hundreds of people. I shot myself. Nobody else knew that it was happening, but I remember feeling it running down my leg. I was like, "Oh shit, I need to get out of here."
But you knew, and so did Jesus.
I'm
he
going
knew
to hell
as well.
for that. So. I am burning in hell for shitting at the altar. Yeah. Oh, it's so bad.
God, I wouldn't even know what mine were.
Jeez,
I'm so old now.
I don't know. Nothing really stands out like that, to be fair.
Nothing compares.
I do have a dildo related one that I've said on the pod before, but we were up at the zoo, and it was this time of year because it was springtime and all the daffodils were out, and for some reason I said daffodildos and my daughter just then skipped down the road going dildos. I was like, oh no, shut up.
Oh shit.
That was the definite bad dad parenting moment for sure.
Yeah.
How did you correct that situation?
I
just had to know to stop. It's a bad word. I don't know why I said it, and getting like a seriously evil stare from my missus. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, you know licorice all sorts. You know the licorice sweets. Their mascot is called Bertie Bassett.
Yeah.
As a child, I used to think he was called Bertie Bastard. So like I just be like, can I get some Bertie Bastards? Caused a few embarrassing moments. Not as good as daffodildos.
Daffodildos. I do like that. That's what they should be referred to from now on.
Yeah.
This film took an unexpected
It did. It
turn.
took a very
I didn't expect
R-rated
to have so much
turn.
dildo chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it usually does on our podcast.
The budget for this was $175 million. Clearly, this one's going to be a winner. I think there's no surprise. But do you have any idea how much money this did make?
No.
Ooh, I wouldn't say
It
it's...
was 800.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say I wouldn't pass a billion.
Go
I didn't think it would pass a billion.
No, not yet. But maybe after this review, there'll
Maybe
be
a
another
surge,
150 mil. 858 and counting. So that's...
So you said their
fucking
budget
good.
was 175
175,
million,
but then there's
double that for
normally marketing
Okay,
on
yeah.
top of that. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Maybe not enough money for Disney these days.
We were talking about, well, they've got a bottomless pit
Yep.
there, haven't they, really? We were talking about Endgame, and that was over 500 million in the end when you add the marketing in. But we were also looking at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and that was only 90 mil. And when you compare, like, visually how they look,
so good. Yeah.
like that, to me, when I see animation now, that's like the gold standard because it was just absolutely knocked you away. That film was just incredible.
Yeah, I rewatched it recently. It was absolutely class. The techniques that you used, animated like on every other frame to emulate cell animation.
Well, we had that sort of same
was
discussion
cool.
on our WandaVision finale episode. We were discussing how we felt, did WandaVision compare to Endgame visually for the money it was spent? It was about 25 million per episode of WandaVision. And we so we kind of came... I think it ended up being a little bit more expensive, was it? Or just shy of Endgame? And I kind of wondered, comparatively, what would you have thought looked better? Joe, you thought WandaVision?
Yeah, I thought overall, I mean, I'm not saying like WandaVision had crazy special effects, and like on the scale of Endgame, but as a complete package, I think it looked better.
How did you find the finale?
It was all right.
Typical Marvel fare, yeah.
Yeah,
It
I felt
descended
like-
from its, really creative sitcom type thing.
I'm not sure they
Yeah.
could have
Blasty
stayed
blast.
lasers
like that. It was
around.
enough to put people off the
Yeah.
start. Even I, going in with no
Yeah.
knowledge whatsoever, even aesthetically how it was going to look, first 2 episodes, I thought, "What the fuck is this?" I couldn't. I nearly felt like quitting right then and there. But then we persevered because we needed to for the show, and I really enjoyed it.
I felt like it was. I still enjoyed the finale. I'm a sucker for all that Marvel stuff, but all the interesting stuff, the different stuff that they'd done throughout the series,
All the little
just
Easter
seemed to be
eggs and
forgotten
everything,
in the
and
last
everything they were
episode.
hiding in the background.
And it was just like
All the
head laser
bullshit
beams and
Easter
stuff
eggs, yeah.
as usual. But I enjoyed it. I'm not. I was enthusiastic about it before it started. I'm not. I don't share that enthusiasm for the Winter Soldier and Falcon. I just think
No, neither do I. No.
I'll still watch it,
Is
but
it out
it
now?
just seems
Is it
to
out
be a bit
soon?
more vanilla.
Friday.
Friday,
Okay.
I think.
Well, we're
first one.
watching.
Just
I was
after
going
the
to say
Snyder
we're
Cut.
watching the Snyder Cut, and we're going to do a review on that.
Are you excited for that?
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of DC.
I think you're less than
I'm not a
excited,
big fan of
Ryan. You
DC. I
hated
love Marvel.
Justice League.
DC, they kind of have all the shit heroes, in my opinion, and all the shit villains. But
Oh,
Batman's
Batman,
brilliant.
come
I love Batman. You
Don't throw-
can't go
don't
wrong
throw
with
shade on
Batman,
Bat-
but
on
he's
Batman.
about the only one. Superman is borderline for me. I do love Batman. I did watch Gotham.
I think Superman's boring. I mean, he's just unbeatable. So what's the point? Same issue with Captain Marvel. She seems like she can't be beaten.
Too
So what's the
overpowered.
point? I'm not excited for the Snyder Cut, and I hate that fucking toxic fan fucking attitude of give me the fucking cut I want. Fuck off. Just
Yeah.
fuck off.
I don't think this one is purely to do with the fans. I think this one is kind of.
No,
to do
it
with
there's more to it than
yeah.
that. And I didn't realize what a fucking arsehole Joss Whedon
Yeah,
was. I'm
yeah.
a
Yeah,
big,
we were talking about that as well.
big
He's a
Buffy fan,
dick.
and yeah, it's fucking tainted, man.
How much did they
I'm-
spend on reshoots? Joe,
What
did
a
you say it
shame.
was like 70 million?
70 million was.
Oh,
that's
for
what I
yeah,
heard,
for
It
the
would
Snyder
need to
Cut?
make its money
Yeah.
back.
That's
Yeah.
just on. That's just on Henry Cavill's moustache.
Yeah.
I
that
do
lip.
enjoy
He's
Henry
a-
Cavill. I
he's
think
a-
brilliant.
Fellow Jersey countryman.
I do. The first thing I noticed on this show was your mustache and your beard. They're very, very well groomed. You have a fantastic mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you sit and twirl it at the ends? Do you sit
VFX to
and
get rid of that.
play with it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
It's très magnificent.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so ginger though.
Mine
I
just
don't know.
comes in patchy.
Sometimes
with
I
our
just-
family.
Sometimes
You-
I just go to the barber and say like, just reset,
Yeah.
take it off, and he's like, no. It's the
You
best
can't
one
see
on the
because
show.
of the light in here, but like I have like blonde hair and I've got a ginger beard. So if I grow it, it is pure orange and it's like
Do it. Yeah. Go on, Joe. Final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts. Yeah, I enjoyed Inside Out overall. I like the message. I kind of agree that it's not the most visually arresting thing. You were saying earlier on, Ryan, that you kind of got a little bit choked up about the
Yeah.
Bing Bong thing. That wasn't the bit that got me. It was the ending whenever the memories. You came to the realization that memories cannot just be like one thing. They can be a mixture of both. And whenever it was like sadness and happiness mixed together, that got me. And it actually made me think about my own memories and sort of looking back on things. So I think that the film achieved what it set out to do, which was entertain the young people watching it, but also make the older people sort of consider their own past and what things have shaped them. So yeah, that's my kind of sum up. I enjoyed
Lovely.
the film.
As someone who's all about aesthetics, like I love, camera and lighting and cinematography. And as you were saying, it didn't look as good as it should have, but I did love kind of the small visual cues, such as like the shapes and the colors of the characters and how they were representing the different emotions and just little things like the control panel and whatnot. Like I'm a sucker for those kind of little visual cues. I love the end message, just simply being that to put into context, not just with joy and sadness, that you can't have one without the other, but just in every emotion. And I suppose that was reflected at the end of the movie where you see all the different orbs and they're a mix of different colors. And I just loved that they were trying to, well, not just tell children, but adults, I suppose, that you really need to embrace every emotion and understand it fully to be able to control it, but to be able to kind of get better perspective on your other emotions and other parts of your psyche. And I think it's very interesting that therapists are using it with children. So yeah, I enjoyed it more having seen it from that perspective a second time round, not so much the first time. But yeah, overall, I thought it was good.
Cool. Well, I fell asleep,
Okay,
so
yes,
that,
yes.
that tells you everything you need to know. No, I fell asleep purely out of fatigue, nothing to do with the movie itself. Yeah, like you mentioned, Joe, I don't think that, visually I wasn't blown away by it. Certainly when you compare it to things like Toy Story 4, which I think is off the chart. And recently, having watched Spider-Man, like we mentioned, that is like the gold standard. But on a sort of the message of the film really struck me, especially I don't know, maybe it just hits different when you're a parent, because it certainly, with what we're going through in our households, with sort of emotional
We
stuff.
will let you know if and when we are
just to do
parents,
with all
if we
sorts of
have the
different
same,
things.
if we see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, don't do it. Just don't.
Don't have kids? You sound like my
don't
dad.
Do it. Don't do it yourself.
Why would you want to do that to
Fuck
yourself?
that. No, don't.
I regret having you, Ryan.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
my brother was wanted. I was an accident. Andrew was meant to be a girl, and Jordan was an accident. So there you go.
So it does have that message when you're a dad or indeed a mother. It does sort of make you think about what's going on in those little people's heads, which maybe I hadn't considered in quite so much sort of depth before. So definitely grateful to the movie for that.
Did you ever consider maybe what emotion is more in charge in your own head?
In mine, probably anger.
That's you as well, Ryan, aren't you?
Oh, thank you very much,
You
Joe.
an angry boy.
Yes, I don't consider myself a violent person, but I would consider as a trait in my family, we'd be very short-tempered. Yeah, so it's something I don't allow people to see. So I'm quite surprised when you're saying anger. It's something you don't normally see in people, and they internalize that and just kind of push it down and down. And that's something that I'm working on. But I would probably agree, as much as I hate that yeah, anger is probably something that has more control than I would like. What about you, Joe?
It's all that testosterone,
It
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men.
Yeah, I would say that it's probably like, sadness, because I'm a sad
Oh.
boy. No, it probably is sadness, but I don't really see it as a negative thing. Like I've said this to some of my friends, and like, you're an actual freak. Maybe it's the writer in me, but I love when I feel melancholy and I'm looking out at the rain and I'm like, oh, ennui, sadness. It's an odd thing taking pleasure
bittersweet.
in like sad moments. I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
it's a bittersweet.
That's what
kind of
this
thing.
movie tells us, though. That was the message. I think one of the key takeaways from this message was to not be afraid of that emotion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I learned it. Lesson learned.
So everyone, go and watch it and get in touch with your emotions.